And to talk about what's going on with social media right now, we have Rachel Southmaid with us. What's going on, Rachel?
Well, as things have really gotten busy in Charlotte, so has the activity on social media. One of the quotes that really picked up some steam on Twitter was from Newark Mayor Cory Booker's speech earlier this evening. Booker said, "Being asked to pay your fair share isn't class warfare, it's patriotism." Within seconds, this soundbite had begun to circulate online among supporters and dissenters alike. Various speakers today also took to Twitter to show their followers that they're normal people too. Florida Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz shared a picture with her 104,000 Twitter followers. It shows her looking chummy with Antonio Villagrosa backstage before speaking. And even the First Lady got on board with the twit picking, sharing a picture of her hugging Cal Penn, a movie and television actor and Associate Director of Public Engagement for the White House. Mrs. Obama tweeted, "Hugs are a necessary part of convention prep." Back to you.
First Lady Michelle Obama will take the stage tonight at 10:30 p.m. at the Democratic National Convention. DNC aides have referred to her as the star of the Obama family. A senior campaign official predicts that she will offer insight into the personal values and President Obama. Analysts expect that this convention speech will focus less on hard-hitting political issues. Instead, Mrs. Obama will concentrate on promoting the leadership of strengthening her husband. As for President Obama, he says that he hopes he won't become too emotional during his wife's speech, which he will view from the White House.
He's the mayor of San Antonio and a rising star in the Democratic Party. Here's a little bit about Julian Castro.
Hey everybody, I'm Julian Castro.
Pronounce the J like an H. Julian Castro. When he was elected mayor of San Antonio in 2009, he became the youngest mayor of a top 50 American city.
I'm starting to get the gray hair that I need from my 3-year-old daughter and from politics.
But tonight he will step into the national spotlight as the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention. He will deliver the same speech that President Barack Obama delivered in 2004, leaving some to wonder if one day we could potentially see a President Castro. In an interview with CNN, Castro said he is honored to be thought of so highly, but he won't let the pressure get to him.
No, I'd be lying if I said that that's not flattering. Of course it's flattering to anybody, but the biggest mistake that I could make or anybody could make in this situation is to believe the press.
Castro has a big job. He will have to convince Latinos to stick with Barack Obama and, most importantly, vote.
Under any score, immigration, education, health care, and any number of issues, he has been a very effective advocate for the community, for the Latino community.
Castro has stayed away from controversies, except for that one time in 2005. Castro was a city councilman and was running late to a San Antonio Riverwalk parade, so he had his twin brother take his place. Critics say Castro was trying to fool the massive crowd. Today, Joaquin Castro is a Texas congressman, and he will introduce Julian tonight. But if you think you're going to have a hard time distinguishing who is who...
Well, he says that he's a lot better looking than I am, so there you go. And the wedding ring is another good way.
Julian Castro's keynote speech is expected to talk a lot about family. Here is an excerpt from his speech. He says, "My family story isn't special." He says that it is America that makes our story possible. He then goes on to say that ours is a nation like no other place, where great journeys can be made into a single generation. No matter who you are or where you come from, the path is always forward.
Antonio Villagrosa, the incumbent mayor of Los Angeles and chair of the Democratic National Convention, rallied support on gaining volunteers to campaign the presidential election. He also addressed the importance of the Latino vote, especially in swing states. He believes the convention will be the perfect place to get those volunteers.
In Charlotte, we're also going to present our vision, and we're going to affirm our values. We're going to show the country that we're the party of openness and opportunity, a party of ingenuity and innovation. We're going to get down to business, roll up our sleeves, and get the country moving.
The LGBT caucus met at the Charlotte Convention Center today to discuss the agenda for the next 63 days until the election. The main issue discussed was the young vote, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius, said that she believes younger students aren't as engaged because they don't understand why gay rights are even in question.
I don't think there's any question that younger voters are enthusiastically for equality for all. They can't figure out why we debate who can get married and who can't get married. They can't figure out why anyone would be persecuted or prosecuted because of who they love.
Congressman Barney Frank spoke with CNN's Suzanne Malveaux at the CNN Grill in Charlotte today about President Obama's support of same-sex marriage. Frank said that he feels people who are uncomfortable with Obama's recent support of gay marriage won't let it stop them from voting for him in November. He argues that the president's popular policies on election issues will outweigh any problems some may have regarding equal marriage rights.
With his position on choice, with his position on the environment, with his position on health care, but who were turned off only because he's for same-sex marriage, I think it's fairly.
Democratic strategist James Carville held a book signing at the Democratic National Convention today. His new book, It's the Middle Class Stupid, is aimed at the 2012 election and the relationship between Wall Street and the U.S. government. The book was co-written with political pollster Stan Greensberg. It claims that elected officials have failed the middle class. The book goes on to assert that taking on the wealthy is crucial to America's future. A couple of minutes from Elon's campus showed up to protest at the convention as well. Here's Jason Puckett.
As the streets reopened for local traffic this morning, many demonstrators also returned to the streets.
It's the only way your sins can
Using signs and speakers, different groups tried to bring attention to their causes. This group was gathered on Trade and Tryon cheering on President Obama.
Turn it up.
And while some may call them protesters, at least a few from Burlington see themselves differently.
Educators. I guess that's it. That would probably be the best.
Jason Sneed and Matthew Duggins live in Burlington, but they came all the way to Charlotte for the DNC.
There's 15 of us, I believe, and supposedly to get more to come.
Both men have been out since Sunday, handing out flyers and talking to people about a pro-life documentary called 180 Movie.
So we're asking people, distributing the URL, the180movie.com, to people and just sharing with people like we are with you.
Sneed, Duggins, and other members of their church will be here until the end of the DNC. They say that it's important to be here because of the event's size.
We've got a lot more opportunity here because of the congestion of people from all over the globe in one place.
And that was Jason Puckett reporting. You know, he did feature a protest group from Burlington. Lots of protests going on right now. What have you guys heard lately?
Well, you know, it's interesting that the Occupy movement hasn't been something that people have been talking a lot about, but I'm interested to know if at the Republican National Convention there were a lot of occupiers there as well.
Well, I think at any large political convention or gathering like this, you're going to have some protesting. There were some Occupy Wall Streeters there, not as so much as present. Really, the Republican Party were less protesting against things and more protesting for, whereas at the Democratic National Convention, we're seeing a lot more opposing parties as opposed to those in favor of policies that President Obama has put in place or is looking to put in place.
And at the Republican National Convention, there really weren't many arrests. I believe only 3. We had 3 the day before the convention.
Yeah, crowds in Charlotte seem to be a little rowdier for whatever reason. I'm not really sure what's to blame on that. It's a lovely place. It
is a lovely place. And the people from Burlington, they touched on the pro-lifeness. And, you know, women's rights of their body has been a big issue. It will be this year and every year, basically. What do you think, really? The DNC took a stance on pro-choice. That was pretty expected, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty expected, but you know what, 4 years ago, I don't think anyone could have predicted that this election would come down to women's issues. You know, I think everybody could have predicted the economy, but women's issues, that was kind of a surprise. It's come out of left field in the last couple of months, really.
And you know, there are tons of speakers at the convention right now, some more than others. One was Nancy Keenan. She's the president of Pro-Choice America. She should be speaking pretty soon. What do you think she's going to touch on, really? You think she's going to focus more on the women's issues?
I definitely think she's probably going to focus on the women's issues, just as the other female speakers have. But it's definitely a topic that I think is going to be something that is important for the women speakers here at the Democratic National Convention.
And of course, people have been speaking all day, but just before our broadcast, a big powwow of women speakers were on stage, one being Allison Schwartz. What did you take away from the women speaking?
The women's panel was it was interesting. You know, it was a collection of women introduced by Nancy Pelosi. They all had different backgrounds, but most of them spoke mainly about women's issues, a little bit about the economy, but you know, they made very bold statements. You know, women still make about 30 cents less than men on the dollar, and for some insurance providers, being a woman is considered a pre-existing condition, not really fair, and they're riled up about it, and they want to do something about it.
Interesting that Nancy Pelosi did speak at the convention when she was encouraging speakers and delegates to stay home and rally for Obama.
Yeah, I think the Democratic National Convention has sort of boiled up to more than anyone expected it to be. You know, when you have an incumbent president appearing at a convention, you know, it's not that common for it to be that big of a deal because everyone knows, you know, who's going to get the seat really. But it's turned into a bit more of a circus than I think people expected, and people are turning out in droves, and it seems that delegates and elected officials and those that are running for office are doing the same.
Now, we posted a little excerpt from Julian Castro's speech earlier on our show. Now, Michelle Obama is also expected to speak tonight. You know, Ann Romney had a very powerful speech at the RNC. What do you think Michelle's speech is going to be like?
It's going to be a lot of personal things about her husband. I think she's going to focus less on the hard-hitting issues like we talked about before, but it's definitely going to be more personal things about Obama, President Obama, and what he really does stand for.
Right, and you know, one issue that the Republicans do have is painting Mitt Romney as in touch with the middle-class voter, something Obama really doesn't have to focus on. But what do you think Obama does have to focus on?
Well, you know, you may say Obama doesn't have to focus on the middle class, but that seems to be the word of the day at the DNC today. You know, if I had a nickel for every time someone said middle class. So I think that they've realized that that is really where their niche is. You know, the middle class might hold a lot of moderate voters who could be swayed either way, maybe aren't happy with the economic recovery we've seen so far and are looking somewhere else. But middle class voters really seem to be the target today, and of course women as well. It's been a day for middle class voters and for women.
Right, and we'll have more information on that later on in the show and throughout the week. But for now, let's go back to protests. ELN covered a couple of protests outside the convention today. First, an Occupy protest. Here's Allison DeMora. Oh, my IFB's out. My DNC
platform. I followed them later to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which is where their protests held.
DNC.
It's a farce. You know, both candidates are corporately sponsored. It really doesn't matter what the people want.
These Occupy protesters come from all over the country in many different backgrounds, but they all have one thing in common.
They do not call themselves Democrats or Republicans.
And to many of us, they are not very different. Once you get to the very top, they still serve the same interests. Still serve the most wealthy, most powerful people in this country.
Some Occupy protesters think the government is a corporate threat.
We really like to expose the DNC for what it is. It's the same as the RNC. It's about a corporate party. This is not about choices, it's not about real choices for the American public.
The protesters say they would also like to see the government not profit from things that impact everyday Americans.
It's obscene. Capitalism gone wild has created a monster. It's devoured our democracy. Its excrement is polluting every aspect of our society.
The protesters gathered outside the NASCAR Hall of Fame to rally against corporate power in hopes their voices will be heard.
Here today to assemble with those people over there, and you are telling me that I cannot cross this barrier to be with my people. Is that correct, sir?
Protesters braved the rain and flooded the streets.
I am here today to freely assemble. As per the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right of peaceful assembly and free speech to communicate with my government and petition them against the grievances they have committed.
Protesters are expected to continue rallying throughout the remainder of the convention.
Allison Demora, Elon Local News.
It's been 5 days since the Republican National Convention, but there hasn't been much of an effect on Romney's ratings. The Gallup poll says that Mitt Romney's ratings have not increased, but actually decreased. It shows that Romney's rating was 47% before the convention and has dropped to 46% after the convention. He joins John Kerry and George McGovern as nominees who did not receive a boost in ratings.
Last week, the balloons dropped in Tampa for the Republicans, but now that their party is over, it's back to work for the GOP.
Now that their convention has come and gone, the Republicans are hard at work starting the final 2 months of the campaign. Vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan was in North Carolina yesterday, where he said Americans are now worse off than they were 4 years ago when President Obama was elected.
The president can say a lot of things, and he will, but he can't tell you that you're better off.
RNC Chairman Reince Priebus had made a similar case in Charlotte this week, appearing on various talk shows and expressing confidence that Americans would support his party in November.
The facts are the American people are hurting. This president gave grandiose promises layered with pixie dust and everything else. He didn't follow through.
Mitt Romney, however, is taking a brief break from the campaign trail, boating on Lake Winnipesaukee over the weekend. Now he is spending a few days in a private Vermont residence as he begins his preparation for the presidential debates. Senator Rob Portman of Ohio will be playing the role of Obama in these rehearsals. For Elon Local News, I'm Brian Mazurski.
Romney-Ryan ticket hopes to counter any arguments that the Democrats make this week, offering themselves as a better alternative.
An interesting and surprising moment at the RNC leads to a discussion about a possible celebrity appearance at the DNC.
What do you want me to tell Romney?
Some called it bizarre, some called it strange, but it was a moment people couldn't stop talking about. The crowd got to their feet when Academy Award-winning actor Clint Eastwood took the stage at the RNC last week. But many were confused when Eastwood started talking to an empty chair that was supposed to be President Obama.
When they called me, I fell off the couch. I couldn't believe it.
Now the website Change.org is trying to get another Hollywood icon to the Democratic National Convention, Betty White. But according to her agent, the 90-year-old Golden Girl will not be able to make it, as she is working on her 2 TV shows. White endorsed President Obama in May.
Though Betty White will not be in attendance, several other celebrities intend to be present at the DNC. This list includes James Taylor, Jessica Alba, and Eva Longoria.
And now let's check with things in the social media center. Rachel, what do you have for us?
Well, another interesting way social media is making an appearance in Charlotte is through an interesting initiative through the city. The city has partnered with a local technology and mapping organization to comb through the cloud, literally. No, not the white fluffy things above the skyscrapers in Charlotte, but the technological cloud. There's various social media sites that these companies are combing through looking for problems with the DNC. So if you're headed down to Charlotte and you notice a traffic light out or lots of traffic at a public transportation facility, you can tweet about it. The city will see it and bam, magically, maybe that problem will get fixed. The city is testing out this technology and may implement it full-time after the convention. Back to you.
Hey Rachel, what are some election Twitters that people should be following right now?
Well, any speaker you're interested in is a really great one to follow, but there's also several ones about the convention themselves. The city of Charlotte has a great handle, but make sure you're following Barack Obama and Michelle Obama because they tend to be very active on Twitter.
Right, and of course there has been no Anthony Weiner incidents yet, right?
No, nothing really dramatic has happened yet. There have been really no big political gaffes. A small one, actually, Hitler has been referenced several times. Many people in the public and in politics obviously think it's inappropriate to compare anything to Adolf Hitler and the atrocities of World War II. So that's kind of a no-no for anybody coming up. Just don't make the references.
And of course, Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, they both have Twitters too. Rachel, have you been able to monitor how Paul and Mitt tweet compared to Barack and Joe Biden?
Well, Joe Biden's not all that active. Barack tends to be very personal. He tweets several times throughout the day, not just quotes of what he says, but also where he is, what he's doing, how he's feeling, how he can help out with the campaign. Romney and Ryan tend to be a little stiffer in their tweets. They tend to talk about foreign policy decisions only, although both Obama and the Romney camps have gotten increasingly negative as we get close to the election, often tweeting about their opponent in a bad light.
And of course, parody Twitters are very popular nowadays. Can you think of any parody election Twitter accounts?
Invisible Chair Obama is definitely the one to watch. Clint Eastwood was addressing the invisible chair. So Invisible Chair Obama has been making the imaginary rounds throughout the country in the last couple of days, and he's pretty funny.
And Scarlett, is there a specific election Twitter you think that our viewers should be following?
No, I'm just interested to see what the public is saying and the viewers. Have you seen, Rachel, any, what are the responses like from those that have been attending the conventions?
Well, mostly in the last couple of days, it's been, what's going on with Carolina Fest yesterday, lots of, celebrity sightings with James Taylor and Jeff Bridges, Janelle Monáe especially. But people are beginning to share what they're seeing if they manage to get press passes or community passes to get inside the convention. Like I mentioned earlier with the Cory Booker tweet, we're seeing people talk about the things they like hearing, talk about the things they don't like hearing, and sharing lots of pictures of themselves in the crowd. There's some pretty amusing people out there. One hat in particular was completely covered with Obama bobblehead dolls. So that was making the rounds on social media.
And of course, Cory Booker in the news for the wrong reasons for his Twitter right now, but he did tweet out some very nice things to his residents when they were experiencing some struggle in a terrible winter in Newark, New Jersey last year. Do you remember that, Rachel?
Yeah, Cory Booker has really proved to be a leader in a tough economy, in a tough community of Newark, New Jersey. And a lot of people say that he has the chops to run for governor in 2016 in the state of New Jersey.
All right, well, we're going to take a break now. Thanks for joining us.